Welcome back to Winners and Losers. This is the show that looks at the highs and the lows from the Premier League this weekend. Christopher Hamill is joining me in the building. Hamster, how are you?
I'm absolutely super duper, thank you, mate. Mixed bag this weekend. I won't, bore you with any more Celtic propaganda, but, Graham Potter triumphed, Curtis Jones cutting about like the Prince of Anfield. So, yeah, I'm all right. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Exeter Chiefs won, England won, Man United won, so not too bad of a sporting weekend for me. But nevertheless, let's crack straight on with the talking point. It's Liverpool versus Leicester City, and there was a demolition at Anfield, Hamster.
Yeah, that rugby chat absolutely has to stop. Cannot happen in consecutive weeks. That is abominable. But let's move on to Anfield, like you said, because Liverpool just absolutely dispatched of Leicester with a B+ side, let's say, and they set a club record of I think 64 games unbeaten at home, which is absolutely sickening, as they triumphed over Leicester, who apparently, title contenders, 3-0. Very flat from the visitors, wasn't it? But it was some performance from the home side. They were missing VVD, Gomez, Trent, Thiago, Salah, Henderson. In came Nico Williams finished the game. Curtis Jones was there as well. Fabinho was at centre-half. Joel Matip played absolutely out of his skin. Just everyone did their job to a T, didn't they? They put up their highest expected goals, actually, in the whole of 2020. 3.47.
Wow.
So very, very good for their victory here and thoroughly deserved all 3 points. And Diogo Jota, once again at Anfield, absolutely unplayable, scoring his 4th goal in as many games on the hallowed turf. Sadio Mane is probably the hardest person to mark, I would say, in the Premier League. He is an absolute bastard to compete with, isn't he? Just has everything to his game. And Wesley Fofana, he's not had it easy, has he, so far in his Premier League career? But my oh my, will he be having a sleepless night tonight, just seeing Sadio everywhere. By the way, signed him in 2016, still hasn't lost the home game for Liverpool.
Ridiculous.
How is that a thing?
In the league, but it's ridiculous.
How is that a thing? Of course, in the league, like you said, important caveat there. Bobby Firmino, I wouldn't say he struggled in this game, and I think when he got his goal, he thoroughly deserved it as well. Missed out by 10 millimetres when O'Brien cleared one off the line, didn't he? But scored an emphatic header at the end. Only scored 1 at Anfield last campaign. Scored 2 so far this season, so he's flying. What's that, 3 in 23, 24?
Something like that, yeah.
You know what? This Liverpool side is so good they can afford their number 9 not to score consistently. And yes, he does bring other people into the game, but I think it's time he started chipping in as part of that forward unit a little bit more significantly. However, flooded by his teammates when he scored that header, wasn't he? James Milner sounded him out in his post-match.
Yeah, I think so. I think first half we were very good. Second half weren't as good. Let them into the game a bit more, I think. But there's a lot of miles in the boys' legs, internationals and things like that. So, I thought we kept the ball pretty well. At times took the sting out of it when he turned to the first half and got the second goal. Could have been outside more. Bobby, I don't know what he's been doing, but he was the unluckiest man alive, I think, for the first 80 minutes of the game or whatever. But he deserved his goal. He was brilliant tonight, so unlucky. But yeah, I think it was a great performance.
It looked like the rest of the team were as happy as he was when it finally went in.
Yeah, I just said to him, I think I'd have been angrier than him if it was just one of those nights for him. I thought he was outstanding and just couldn't get his goal, so delighted he got it. Thoroughly deserved. I thought he was brilliant, along with the full front line and the boys at the back done brilliant as well.
Let's chat a little bit about Leicester as well then, because coming into the match week, at least, they were top of the table, weren't they? But with this slightly dodgy performance, it has to be said, they slipped down to 4th. I just think that really from the first minute, you got the sense that Leicester couldn't really live with Liverpool. Rodgers struggled to create any sort of momentum in the game. They generated just 0.7 expected goals. As you said, Liverpool over 3. So this was a bit of a one-sided match. And it's been that way whenever Rodgers has played Liverpool as Leicester boss, because he's lost all 3 of his league meetings with the Reds. And yes, they struggled going forward. We can talk about how Vardy didn't really get into the game. I barely saw Maddison create a chance. But they struggled even more at the back. They were outshot 24-11 in this game. Liverpool managed to put 13 shots on target. That is not impressive. And like I said, their record against Liverpool is bad in terms of losses, but it's even worse in terms of goals. They've conceded 9 goals in those last 3 losses under Brendan Rodgers against Liverpool. The most they've conceded against any opponent in that time. I want to highlight Johnny Evans because he had a little bit of a night to forget, which is kind of ironic because on Sunday Vibes I said he'd be a good signing for Liverpool.
Yes, love that. Curse of the commentator strikes again.
And he's already scored his first Liverpool goal by the looks of it. Absolute whiffer of a header. I don't know what is he thinking.
And then he's looking at the referee afterwards as if like he just desperately wants someone to pardon him from what's just happened.
Yeah, it's a totally bizarre decision. That was his 6th own goal in the Premier League. Only Richard Dunn, Jamie Carragher and Martin Skirtle have scored more own goals than Big Johnny. Nevertheless, it was always going to be a tough game. And after the match, Brendan Rodgers, pretty realistic about his side.
Well, I think first half we were too passive in our play, and that's normally not how we've been. Just not aggressive enough in our defending. And I think when you're like that, and you just like that wee bit of contact in your defending, then it means then with the ball we weren't so good either. I thought first half as well, when we had it, we were looking too much for the through ball on the counter whenever we had to make passes. Still had a really good chance. Harvey comes inside, and that's a big opportunity at this level. Didn't quite go in for us, and JJ went close. Second half was much better. We had to change it. We gave it 15 minutes and then made the change. And then we started to be more aggressive in our game, and then we concede again another soft goal from a set piece. So 2 set pieces disappointing for us, and obviously from another cross and open play.
Right then, before we move on to our winners, if you're not a member of Team FD, hit that button right now and turn notifications on, just so you don't miss another episode of Winners and Losers all bloody season long. And we should technically be talking about Tottenham here after a magnificent victory over Manchester City. But Joe did a whole show dedicated to them on the reaction, didn't you, mate? We're going to put a link in the description below if you haven't checked that out. So, by proxy, Chelsea are our winners, and this comes in from Tropical Spy. I feel like they're a bit fortunate to be here, but they're picking up some form, aren't they, JT?
Yeah, maybe a little bit fortunate, you're probably right, but they did briefly at least go to the summit of the Premier League before, of course, being knocked off by Liverpool and Tottenham with a 2-0 away victory over Newcastle. Not the most impressive, but nevertheless, it's the wider story of Chelsea that's got people talking, because that's 5 wins on the bounce now for Frank Lampard in all competitions. His side really starting to put together a nice bit of momentum at an important time of the season, and it's really all come off the back of a superb defensive effort. Without Thiago Silva on the weekend as well, but another clean sheet. 6th clean sheet in 7 games. Game got underway with a Fernandes own goal. Not very pretty, but Tammy Abraham got on the score sheet, did the damage. He's been very, very impressive in the last sort of 18 months, hasn't he? Since the start of 1920, he's got 23 goals in all competitions for the Blues. That's 11 more than any Chelsea player. And there was talk at the start of the season, wasn't there? How is he going to fit into this side? Well, he fits in quite nicely, to be totally honest with you, alongside Timo Werner. Werner coming in from that left-hand side, because the German's now got 11 goal contributions and 3 penalties won in his last 13 games for Chelsea. So that sort of combination of Tammy with Werner on the left, you've got Ziyech providing chances as well. Mount playing a slightly deeper role in this game, more of an 8. I found really interesting as well. And finally, we saw the return of the best of N'Golo Kante. He's been building himself back up, and on the weekend he was absolutely superb. 7 tackles and interceptions on the day, more than any Chelsea player. No wonder after the match that Lampard was absolutely delighted with his side's rearguard action.
It's nice to be in the position we are. It won't be long that we're top of the league, but it's nice to have amassed those points, and we can gain confidence from clean sheets, which we know have been problems for different reasons for us earlier in the season and parts of last. So we need to keep working. To keep going, because consistency is what we really will strive for. It's a short period of games that we've been consistent, and that needs to continue.
As for Newcastle, incredibly uninspiring, dull stuff. Not the first time I've said that this season either. It won't be the last. I'm not beating up on you, Newcastle fans. That is just the reality of the situation. You've now lost 5 of your last 7 home games in the Premier League. starting to smell like relegation form, isn't it? But Steve Bruce does have a terrible record against the Blues. He's only won 2 of his 24 league matches against them as manager. So maybe this was on the cards going into it. And the challenge, to be fair to him, was made even harder, wasn't it? In the absence of Callum Wilson, their top goal scorer, who's bagged 6 of the last 10 goals they've scored in the league, I think, out with a hamstring injury. And have now failed to score without their talisman in successive games. The cause also not helped by the fact that Jamal Lascelles picked up an injury, didn't he? The captain failed to appear at the start of the second half after going down heavily. Overall, though, you can see why the Newcastle fans are starting to get a little bit tetchy. Obviously, that goes beyond this result. I think even the most optimistic Newcastle fan wasn't expecting 3 points here. But it's the performances, isn't it? They are so dull. 1 shot on target against Chelsea. I mean, it needs to be better, doesn't it? And after the game, Steve Bruce didn't pull any punches.
Look, the problem that you get off to an awful start like we did against a very good Chelsea team, and unfortunately we went far too deep in the first half in particular.
Moving on to our loser this week then, suggested by Ewan Buxton. Of course, it had to be Nicolas Pepe. That's because Arsenal struggled to a poor 0-0 draw with Leeds, who quite frankly battered them for 90 minutes. Pepe was sent off, but Hampster's going to chat about him in just a little minute. And this 0-0 draw was quite a rare sight for Leeds fan. It's only their 3rd goalless draw in 101 league matches under Bielsa. The man guarantees entertainment, and this was still an entertaining game, it has to be said, because Leeds were totally dominant. 70% possession, 25 shots to Arsenal's 9. Now, 25 shots without scoring is actually the most in any Premier League game since Manchester City's 26 against Southampton all the way back in July. They just weren't quite clinical enough, were they? They hit the Woodward. They just weren't quite clinical enough, were they? They hit the woodwork 3 times in the match, only putting 4 of their 25 shots on target. Not good enough. Yes, expected goals had it down as a 2-0 victory for Leeds, but they couldn't really capitalise on that 40 or so minutes when Arsenal were down to 10 men. I actually thought they were better when they were facing 11, to be totally honest. Rodrigo, little bit of a highlight when he came on. 3 shots, 2 chances created, 2 tackles in just 20 minutes of football. He's obviously returning from COVID. So there were definitely positives for Marcelo Bielsa. And here's what he had to say after the game.
I think we certainly created enough chances and done enough to win it. The sending off definitely changed the game, and we had a lot of possession in the second half, and they were camped in. But I think, if you can't win the game, you've got to make sure you don't lose it. They were dangerous a few times on the counter-attack, and that's something we've been working really hard on over the break. And certainly since most of us come back during the week, and we'll take a point now and move on.
You were denied personally, weren't you, by a great save in the second half. Do you think you should have scored in the first?
Probably, yeah. Looking back on, they probably had time to take a touch. These things happen so quickly, and I suppose that's a bit of quality you need, and it's something again that I'm working on in my own game. And obviously in the second half, the keepers pulled off a great save, and just unfortunate one of them chances that the woodwork didn't manage to go in.
Well then, what to say about Arsenal in this game? Let's put Arsenal fans out of their misery and just fly through it, because they were absolutely woeful. They dropped to 11th in the table, just 1 win in their last 5. They can't buy a goal at the minute, can they? They've only scored 9 this season. That's the same as Son. And Aubameyang's drought just goes on and on and on, doesn't it? He's not scored from open play since the opening day win over Fulham. And it's not just down to him individually. As a team, they are struggling big time too. Haven't scored an open play Premier League goal in 8 hours of football now.
Wow.
So it goes without saying that creativity is just a huge, huge problem for Arteta at the moment. And I think Arsenal fans, at least the more pragmatic ones, were willing to accept that at the start of his reign, right? Because he was shoring up that very shaky defence. And I think optimistic Gooners were hoping that a bit of creative endeavour would follow, but that's not been the case. I mean, since the start of last season, only Nicolas Pepe has created more chances in the Premier League for Arsenal than Mesut Ozil.
And he's on Twitter 80% of the game. Get off Twitter, Mesut.
I know. And I mean, talking of Twitter, for f***'s sake, Pepe was trending after the game. Their second most productive creator. One is calling out Piers Morgan on Twitter. The other is trending for all the wrong reasons. So it's safe to say that, Arsenal and their fans all out at sea at the moment. Of course, that was because of that headbutt on Alioski. I mean, he did go down like he'd been absolutely jackhammered, but still, stupid play. And discipline, all of a sudden, has become a problem under Arteta now, hasn't it? Which is a narrative he won't want following around, given the result. So Arsenal have had 5 players sent off in the Premier League since Arteta's first game in charge. David Luiz twice, Aubameyang, Nketiah and Pepe. That's 2 more than any other club. And after the game, some managers defend their players when these sort of things happen. Arteta tends to be quite diplomatic, but not here.
Is there any excuse for the circumstances in which you went down to 10 men?
No, it's unacceptable.
Have you spoken to the player about it? And what's been your message to him? Overall, all things considered, how do you feel you handled the threat of Bielsa's side today?
I really like the personality of the team when Pepe let the team down, how we suffer together and how we stick to what we had to do, and I still believe that we had a moment or two where we could win the game, but obviously makes it really difficult.
All right then, Hamster, very quickly before we finish this show, have you got a moment of the weekend?
Why ask? I mean, it's Graham Potter finally getting the points he deserves away at Aston Villa, and March, who I'm still going to war with against Brighton fans on Twitter because I think he's been absolutely superb at the start of this season, getting the winner. Mwah. Gorgeous. We won't talk about Celtic, Hibs. Burying my head in the sand. Proper ostrich territory. What about you?
Do you know what? I think I might go Seb Aller's goal. Absolute blockbuster finish that was, wasn't
Come
it?
on.
Against Sheffield United, stick them in the mud. Unreal. That or the Fulham penalty miss.
In my draft team as well.
I actually was crying tears
Yeah.
when he missed that penalty, just winding up Henry Hill. But yeah, that was our moments. What were your moments? Let us know in the comments below. That is the end of the show. Hamster, have you got anything you want to plug?
Of course, ERU will be coming out in an hour's time, so keep your peepers peeled for that. And we had a very special podcast. FD Meets returned to the podcast channel, actually, where we interviewed Gabriel Clark, who, for those of you who don't know, is a genuine broadcast legend. So more people need to go and check that out.
Yeah, go and watch that video. Watch the reaction as well, where I chatted nonsense about Spurs versus Man City in a Jose Mourinho masterclass. Thanks very much for watching, everybody.
Bye.
We'll see you later. Bye.